My name is Amelia Hartstone. I'm 28 years old. For 2 decades, my parents called me the slow one, while my sister Charlotte collected degrees and inheritance promises. They mocked my dyslexia at dinner tables, excluded me from family decisions, and paid me a fraction of what they paid her. But on Charlotte's graduation day, in front of 350 guests, a stranger handed me an envelope that would expose every lie my parents ever told about me. The Hartstones were old money Manhattan. My father, William Hartstone, ran Hartstone Properties, a commercial real estate empire my grandmother Clara had built from a single Brooklyn office in 1965. By 2024, the company was valued at $92 million. I was born with dyslexia, diagnosed at 7. My parents' response wasn't support, it was shame. When I was 12, they hired tutors for Charlotte, violin lessons, French immersion, SAT prep. When I asked about getting help for my reading, my mother Elaine just sighed. Amelia, we've already spent so much on specialists. Some children just aren't academic. I was 12. I believed her. So I learned to adapt on my own. Audiobooks became my lifeline. I developed a system of visual notes and flowcharts that helped me process information in ways traditional reading couldn't. And every Sunday afternoon, I'd visit my grandmother Clara's apartment on the Upper West Side. She'd sit with me for hours, explaining concepts through stories instead of textbooks. Amelia, she told me once, her weathered hand covering mine, you read slower than most, but you see things others miss. That's not a disability, sweetheart. That's a different kind of vision. Christmas 2018. My father stood at the head of the table, wineglass raised. Charlotte has been accepted to Harvard Law School on a full scholarship, he announced. The room erupted in applause. Then his gaze drifted to me. And Amelia. He paused. The warmth in his voice evaporated completely. Well, Amelia is also here. A few relatives chuckled, soft, uncomfortable laughs. Charlotte didn't defend me. She laughed along with them. Under the table, Grandma Clara's hand found mine and squeezed hard. She didn't say anything. Not then. But 3 months later, she called me to her apartment and said she needed to show me something important. Clara handed me a small mahogany box with brass hinges that afternoon. Keep this safe, she said. Don't open it yet. When you need it, you'll know. Around that same time, I later learned, she had also recorded a board meeting where my father had pushed to strip her of power. She had been quietly preparing for years, watching, waiting, and protecting me from a distance I didn't yet understand. 3 years later, in 2022, I graduated from a state university and applied for a position at Hartstone Properties. My father hired me as an administrative assistant at $42,000 a year. That same month, Charlotte joined as chief legal counsel at $280,000 plus bonuses. I wasn't invited to a single meeting, never shown a single contract. But I watched and I listened and I discovered something about myself in those long hours in the copy room. I could spot patterns others missed entirely. 2 years into that role, in April 2024, the email arrived on a Tuesday. Subject line, position restructuring, confidential. They were firing me. That evening, through the thin wall beside my cubicle, I heard my father's voice. Can't have her here when Charlotte takes over. It looks bad. The CEO's sister working as a secretary. My mother Elaine's response came soft, almost gentle. We've done everything we could for her, William. Some children just don't have what it takes. I pressed my palm against the wall. If I lost this job, I'd be homeless within 2 months. But the money wasn't what made my chest tight. It was the realization settling into my bones. If I accepted their version of who I was, I would spend the rest of my life as the family failure. Not because I'd actually failed, because I'd never been given the chance to succeed. Charlotte's graduation party was at the Plaza Hotel. 350 guests filled the gilded room. Business partners, investors, extended family I barely recognized. I stood in the entrance tugging at the hem of my $79 dress from Zara, while everyone else glittered in designer gowns. My mother intercepted me before I could find a seat. Her eyes traveled from my drugstore makeup to my scuffed heels. You'll be at table 27 near the service entrance, she said. Tonight is Charlotte's night. Whatever resentment you think you're entitled to, keep it to yourself. At 8:30 p.m., my father took the stage. Effective immediately, he announced, his voice swelling with pride. Charlotte Hartstone will inherit my entire estate upon my passing, including our Park Avenue residence, and most importantly, the position of CEO of Hartstone Properties when I retire. The room erupted in a standing ovation. 350 people celebrating, and not one of them glanced at table 27. Through the crowd, a silver-haired man began walking toward me. Slowly, deliberately. "My name is Jonathan Ellis," he said, producing a cream envelope sealed with red wax. "I was your grandmother's lawyer. She left something for you with very specific instructions about when to deliver it." He placed the envelope in my hands. "Mrs. Clara told me to give this to Amelia on the day William shows her exactly who he is. I believe that just occurred." I pushed through the service entrance and tore open the seal in an empty hallway. 3 pages of dense legal text. A notarized signature dated September 12, 2019. My eyes caught a paragraph near the middle. "To my granddaughter, Amelia Rose Hartstone, I bequeath 51% of my shares in Hartstone Properties LLC, currently valued at approximately $47 million, along with all voting rights associated therewith." I read it again and again. 51% controlling interest, the will continued. "This bequest is made with full knowledge of my son William's treatment of Amelia. She has been excluded, diminished, and denied opportunity, not due to lack of ability, but due to lack of support. Amelia is not slow. Amelia was abandoned." A sob caught in my throat. Grandma Clara had seen everything. That night, I finally opened the wooden box. Inside was a handwritten letter on Clara's personal stationery, a faded 1965 partnership document, and a USB drive. Her letter explained it all. Back in 2018, William had proposed a board resolution to reduce her voting rights from 51% to 10%, claiming she was too old to understand modern business. The USB contained the recorded board meeting where he had said it out loud, time-stamped and undeniable. She had kept it for years, waiting for exactly this moment. The next morning, I called Margaret Owens, a longtime board member and Clara's closest business partner. "Sweetheart, Clara talked about you constantly," she said warmly. "She also told me about the will 3 years ago." Within 24 hours, Margaret had gathered 2 other board members who had quietly grown tired of William's management style. The petition for an emergency board meeting was filed by evening. William found out at 4 p.m. the next day. Charlotte called me 45 minutes later, her voice tight with fury. "What did you do?" I kept my voice even. "Maybe the board has concerns about company management." She hung up without saying goodbye. Through my cubicle wall, I heard my father on the phone. "Amelia, my God, she can barely read a spreadsheet. She's not a threat to anyone." I smiled. For the first time in 28 years, being underestimated felt like an advantage. The boardroom was polished walnut and leather chairs, with portraits of past executives on the walls, and, above the fireplace, my grandmother Clara's painted eyes watching over everything. I stood at the far end of the table in a borrowed blazer and a $12 Goodwill portfolio. When William tried to dismiss me before I could even speak, Robert Hartley, the board chairman, cut him off. "Miss Hartstone has the floor." I placed the will on the table. Jonathan Ellis authenticated it on the spot. When William claimed his mother had been manipulated into writing it, I pressed play on my phone. His own voice filled the room. "Clara is 81 years old. She doesn't understand modern business." The silence that followed was absolute. The board voted 7-4, no confidence in William Hartstone as CEO. He walked out without a word. He looked at me, really looked at me, for what felt like the first time in my life, not with rage, with recognition, the understanding that he had underestimated me so completely for so long that he had lost everything he thought was his. I didn't ask for revenge. I gave him the chance the vote of confidence process allowed. My grandmother had raised me to be fair, not cruel. And mercy, as Margaret told me afterward, was the ultimate power move. 6 months later, I moved into my own apartment in Brooklyn Heights. My new title was Director of Sustainable Development at Hartstone Properties. My salary was $185,000, plus dividends. Margaret and I spoke every other week, guiding the company through its transition. Charlotte and I got coffee on weekends, learning each other for the very first time, sharing the pressures we had each carried in silence for years. Neither of us pretended the past was okay, but we were writing something new. On the wall of my apartment, I hung my grandmother's portrait. She didn't leave me 51% of a company because I was better than Charlotte. She left it because she knew I wouldn't let power corrupt me the way it had corrupted my father. Dyslexia isn't my flaw, it's part of who I am. Along with my visual memory, my patience, my ability to see patterns others miss. The very things that made me slow in my parents' eyes were the same things that let me see the truth when everyone else looked away. If you've ever been the overlooked one, the dismissed one, the one they said would never amount to anything, hear this. You don't need a secret inheritance to prove your value. You just need to stop waiting for approval from people who will never give it. That was the real inheritance my grandmother left me, and nobody can ever take it away.